I
Pretty
mean,
much perfect, of course.
yeah, they've had some weird weather though this year, right? They had all
Yeah,
that rain.
they were complaining about how horrible the winter was, cold and wet, but they were talking, it was like in like the 50s.
Yeah, I know. You know, my brother lived in San Diego. Well, I mean, it does get cool at night. It is definitely jacket weather, you know, kind of desert, like out in the desert, sort of like that. But in the 80s during the day and sunny and beautiful and kind of perfect climate, right?
Yeah, no, it was like 75, 78 and sunny pretty much every day. It was cool in the mornings when I go for my walks, but like in like the mid to upper 50s or whatever, but nice. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And dry, not humid.
Yeah, there was a little humid, but that kind of salt air sort of thing. Because in the mornings they've got kind of the marine layer and the
Right. Yeah.
fog,
Yeah.
but it was still nice. The sun would still come through, and yeah, it was good.
California, what do they call that? California dreaming, right?
Yeah,
A real vibe. So, so Santa Monica is right on the ocean, right?
yeah. That's where the famous pier is. You know, with the big Ferris wheel on it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Did you go there?
No, we drove by it, but I've been there before. But yeah, when we were in Santa Monica, it was mostly kind of on Main Street, and not on the water, but kind of on the main drag along, you know, that runs kind of parallel to the shore,
Uh-huh.
but kind of where all the businesses
Were
and
the
stuff.
surfers out? Were there surfers out?
No, I don't think. Well, not when I was down there that morning. There may have been later in the day, but I don't think the waves were big enough when I was down there for it. But there are some compass agents out of the Santa Monica office though that keep their boards at the office. They have a closet where they can keep their surfboards. Yeah, pretty cool. They can just walk down.
Only in California though.
Yeah, they can walk down about 2 blocks down to the water and just hop on. So
Do they show up at the office in their wetsuits?
probably keep them there, because I think when the waves get right, they just
They
grab
just
their stuff
go.
and
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how surfers are. I remember when Bob and I did our road trip out west and we drove down from San Francisco, we took that Highway 1 down to San Diego. Well, I think we took it until we got to LA and
Yeah.
then had to get through LA, and that took half a day. But but yeah, all the little communities along Highway 1, they have their little surfer shops where you go and get a bagel and a coffee, and all the surfers are out, you know, on the beach. And California
Yeah.
dream. Yeah, we actually drove by that. There's that famous cypress just south of San Francisco where there's a golf club, you know, very exclusive community. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, so you had a great time, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was a really good trip. The event was really good. Probably one of my favorite Compass events.
Yeah.
And probably because it was small enough that we could really, you know, spend time with each other and get to know each other. So that was really good.
Yeah, and really, well, I mean, we kind of know each other through Zoom, but yeah, I think the face-to-face is very different. Well, I know that you had hooked up with Peggy, and she, like you, never puts her camera on for the Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Which I have told you, and I told her that I feel that that's a mistake, because even if you don't participate in the conversation, I think people get to know, you know, when you're there every week in, week out, and people get
I was surprised how many people said they knew me from the Zoom calls, because I never do have my camera on, but so many people were like, oh yeah, I recognize you from the Zoom calls. I don't know if they just associate the name or what, but they all seem to kind of recognize me. Maybe because at times, not always I have a photo.
You're such a celebrity.
Right. I think maybe at times I've had the photo, not always, but have the photo on there. So maybe it's that.
uh,
But many people were like, "Oh yeah, Wes, I know you from the calls." I
well, Sky
recognize
talks
you."
about you all the time, and like this Breakfast Club thing. I mean, he,
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as them recognizing me. Yeah,
yeah.
he mentions people all the time, but yeah. But yeah, it was interesting that I was kind of surprised too, because I thought, well, nobody's going to know me by face, but everybody seemed to. So maybe it's just from having the photo on there, when I
Yeah,
did.
it probably helps. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, because I know that, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people that I see on the calls that, I haven't ever had any converse, but if I were to see them in real life, I would totally recognize them
Yeah. Yeah.
because they have their camera on and they're not, some of them, because they're all the time, adding
Engaging.
engaging and commenting and stuff, but others I just know, well, a real case in point is Tanya Jones, for instance. I don't think she ever has anything to say to the group, speaks to the group, but I mean, she puts a lot of stuff in chat,
Mhm.
but doesn't actually talk, online and live to the group. But
And see, and I'm not in the chat, so I don't really. I know her now, but actually, she wasn't at the event. But she works with John Jenkins, and he had a a, a photo of her face on a stick that he started taking photos like on the airplane on the way in with her, and then it became a thing. Yeah, and they were all over. So
funny.
I recognized her, but like, even though she wasn't at the event, it was kind of like she was there the whole time. People were using those. He had multiple ones of them, and they were using them all the time and stuff. And she was on the text thread that we had going with everything. So yeah.
Well, she's on his team. Why was he doing that? Do you know?
I don't know if she's on his team. I think she is, or they work together, or they're in the same office. They're buddies. I don't know what it is, but
well,
yeah,
that's certainly.
sure.
I mean, if they don't work together, that's awfully generous of him. But yeah.
Well, they're somehow connected. I just don't know in what capacity. Yeah,
Right.
and other people seem to know, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that West Coast group tends to be a little. Well, they all know each other.
Yeah. Should we say
they all seem to kind of know each other.
Should we explain what we're talking about?
Well, we were talking about our 6 a.m.er group, right?
Yeah, but
it's
you didn't actually say that, but no, I don't think anybody knows what we're talking about.
Well, it's a group of Compass agents that every Tuesday and Thursday morning we have a Zoom call, and the organizers interview.
They're across the country.
They're across the country. But there's an East Coast group. They start at 5 a.m. and then there's the West Coast.
Well, 5 a.m. Chicago.
5 a.m. Chicago time, right? 6 a.m. East Coast time. And then they started a West Coast group, and they also start at 6 a.m. West Coast time. So that's kind of perfect for us because that's 8 o'clock, which is a very manageable time for us. I can't imagine getting up at 6 a.m. to get on these calls, but they're a very
we're usually up by then, maybe just not call ready.
Yeah, and some of the folks are not call ready. I mean, they're in their workout clothes or whatever, and they don't have their hair all done and their makeup on and whatnot. So some of them are looking pretty shaggy at 6 a.m. But it's a really great group.
The group came out was a response to COVID, to lockdown, and this was the 3-year anniversary that I was in LA for.
They
I think it's a really powerful group, though, don't you? I think it's really.
Yeah, no, they started in April of 2020 as a way, just because we were all locked down and people were starting to drift, and because we couldn't show property, we couldn't work, and we didn't really know what to do with ourselves, and we were doing bad things like drinking and overeating and things like that. So they started the group as a way to hold ourselves accountable, get up, get busy, go work out, do your morning routine, and don't. And it's really blossomed into an amazing community of, of agents across the country. And what the organizer is, the founder is Sky Michaels. He had been the sales manager out of Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. And now he's actually been promoted and is the head of agent development, right? Isn't that whatever his title is?
Yeah, nationally, right.
But he goes nationally now and coaches and trains and it's amazing. I don't know how he finds the time and energy to do everything that he does, but he's amazing.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's really crazy. But he organized, the 3-year anniversary of them forming the 6 a.m.er group, and he calls us the super ninjas of real estate. Which, okay. I have my ninja pin on today, by the way.
No, he calls us the Navy SEALs.
Oh, I'm sorry. He calls us the Navy SEALs of real estate. Thank you. I got ninja on the brain. I got my ninja pin on today. I said to Wes earlier today that I got to get back on track with my ninja selling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's because he's a big fan of Jocko and the Extreme Ownership book. That's all based on the Navy SEAL experience. So I think that's where he gets that.
So Jocko's like an ex-Navy SEAL. Is that the deal?
Yeah, and that whole book is based on that. That book that's his favorite book, and surprisingly Emily's favorite book too. It's all based on, here's the training in the Navy SEALs, here's what happened in Iraq and Kuwait and all these different experiences, and then they switch it to a business world situation. So it's like, here's what we learned as Navy SEALs, and here's what works, and here's why it works for you in business, sort of thing. So it goes back and forth between basically a war story and then applying it to real life, or our real life. But anyway, so I think that's why you've got ninja on the brain, he's got Navy SEALs on the brain, because
right.
He follows these guys. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is my dear friend and master trainer, Tony Robbins' coach. She's a master trainer for Tony Robbins, and she says she also says that's her favorite book. Debbie Battersby.
Right. Yeah.
That's her favorite book, and
yeah.
Interesting, right? So I guess we're gonna have to break down and read it, but
well, I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. Remember, that's what I've been reading. So.
Oh, well, interesting. I mean, talking about Navy SEALs and the military and stuff. My brother was lived in San Diego and is retired Navy, and they when they lived there, they met this woman. She was a nurse during the Korean War, was a Navy nurse.
Okay.
She's like 97, 98 years old now, which she looks pretty friggin' amazing for 97, 98, wouldn't you say? This is her daughter behind her, who's also in the Navy. And they went to DC. They live in Coronado, and they were in DC this week because they honored her on a what do they call it? An honor flight, military honor flight. And what they do, it's really lovely, because they I'm not exactly sure how these people are chosen for these, but they fly them back to DC. They solicit letters, both from strangers and from people that they know, to thank them for their service and why their service was important to the person writing the letter, and things like that. And she got like, oop, hello. Are you there? You disappeared on me. but she got like two huge mail satchels of letters, and the idea is to read them on the flight while you're on the flight. But of course, it was just too overwhelming. And her daughter stopped counting letters. She started counting to see how many she had, and she had over 200 letters, and she stopped counting when she got to 200. So and they went to, there is a women's military women's memorial in DC, and they went there and whatnot. And Tammy Duckworth, who's our senator, of course, and a veteran, and lost both her legs in, I believe, in Afghanistan, right? She was a helicopter pilot. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
don't know where it was. Yeah.
but anyway, she's currently our U.S. senator, and of course they have a huge plaque at this military women's memorial in D.C. with her and some other outstanding women. So I think that's just so great, but that they do that. But anyway, so
So there's that.
so there's that. I mean, talking about Navy SEALs, right? I don't think the women who
Was she a
served,
Navy SEAL?
no, she was a Navy nurse, and I told you she was in
A
Korea.
SEALette?
A SEALette, yeah. She worked was a Navy nurse in Korea, and I guess she started out actually. What was the story? She started out doing I think intercepting like coded messages, that kind of stuff, cryptology, and then somehow was accepted in to do that work. And then I guess she had trained as a nurse, so then she I don't know the whole story, but anyway, yeah, she's quite an amazing woman, and 98 years old, and was honored in DC this week. So congratulations to Mert. That's what I say.
Well, good.
What else we got?
I don't know. I kind of got sidetracked.
You got sidetracked.
Well, on the whole military thing.
The Navy SEAL thing, right?
Navy SEAL / Korean nurse. Korean
right.
War nurse.
Well, I mean, it's all your fault. You mentioned Navy SEALs, and that sent me off. I was talking ninjas. You were talking Navy
You
SEALs.
were incorrectly talking ninja.
Anyway, do we have anything real estate wise we want to talk about?
Well, I've been in LA all week, so I got nothing real estate to talk about. Of course, we were talking real estate the whole time we were there, but
yeah, what are they saying out there? I mean, their market is really crazy, right?
yeah, it's interesting because actually, as I was saying that, I was realizing all the talking about real estate we did, there was very little talk about the market. And that's kind of interesting in itself, because I think, I think it's the public that draws us into that conversation, not each other. I think we kind of accept the market how it is, and that it's always different and changing, and my market's different than your market, even though we're both in Chicago. And it's just, we're such microcosms within the macro of real estate that it almost doesn't really matter so much. So it's just interesting that when we got all those real estate agents together and really getting deep into conversation and stuff, not surface thing, like, hi, I'm, Wes, how's your market, or whatever. It's not like when it's really deep in conversation, it's never about the market. I mean, we talk a lot about real estate and working with clients and situations you're dealing with, and workarounds and just all different sorts of stuff, but it hardly ever comes up about the market. So that's interesting, right?
I think it is interesting. Although I know that that in California, they're still getting like 20 offers on a property and it's sold.
Yeah, but I mean, we had people from all through California, from Seattle, from Vancouver, even from Portland, from Bay Area, Southern California, LA, San Diego, all that. So they're all different. I mean, maybe more similar to each other than ours. I don't know, but but it's not like it was one market out there, that everybody was
Well,
represented.
that's right, but it doesn't seem to matter who you talk to. The West Coast market is on fire. I don't know why that would be. Why would that be?
Well, where do you hear that it's not?
That it's not on fire?
Yeah. Or
That's
that
what I'm
it's,
saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't
no, I
hear.
mean, anywhere else in the country. What other
Oh,
places are you hearing?
well, like Chicago, I mean, River North, I think, is still fairly depressed. And
Well,
street.
any of the downtown, like New York, San Francisco, just the downtown markets have been, the condo markets have been like that and around the country.
San
But
Francisco's condo market depressed.
oh yeah, yeah, they've
Oh, I
they've
didn't
had the
know that.
exact same experiences we've had with COVID and people not being back at the office and then not being called back to the office, and then increase in homelessness and all sorts of other issues that are kind of offshoots of all of that. But yeah, they've had several issues like that.
There was a really interesting, fun article on the front page of the Tribune. I think it was Sundays or maybe it was Saturdays. Might have been Saturdays, but I think it was yesterday's Tribune about it's the 50th anniversary of them topping off the building formerly known as Sears.
Mm.
And they were talking about how at the time the structural engineer was a fella by the name of Khan, I think Khan, and he worked at Skidmore, Owings, Merrill, of course, who was the architect who designed, and he persuaded them. This was back in 1970, I guess, or 69, something like that, when it was all talk and not done yet or planned. He persuaded them to buy a computer so that he could do the calculations that he needed to do to figure out about the structural stuff that he needed to do. And the computer that they bought took a whole floor. But it was instrumental in him being able to design the Sears Tower, because instead of taking months to do the calculations, it could do it in a matter of a few hours.
Yeah.
If you could imagine, right? A computer the size of, of a room and taking, I guess it was the size of a room, not a whole floor, but anyway, it was huge, and it took hours to do these calculations, and it allowed him to come up with what's so unique and architecturally significant, of course, about Sears Tower is how it has the columns and is light and strong and able to withstand the high winds and whatnot. So I thought that was really a fun story. They actually interviewed an iron worker who was one of the iron workers that topped off the Sears Tower, and he's 73 years old now and living in Arizona. But he said at the time when they were building it, I think they finished it in 73. Well, they finished topping it off in 73, and they started work on it, I think, in 70 or 71. And he said at the time they just were crawling around on those beams. They were up on the 125th floor or whatever it was, climbing around on those beams. They didn't have harnesses. They just walked and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, and he did lose a buddy who didn't fall. He was there was an accident, and he was swept off the beam by some piece of equipment that swung around and knocked him off the beam. But he didn't fall of his own, by himself. I mean, can you imagine such a thing? I mean, I can't even imagine doing that, but without a harness or anything. He said they had a lot more freedom. They could move a lot more easily now, of course, with the harnesses and everything. Their mobility is pretty is handicapped, I guess. But
yeah. Huh.
But I guess if a beam comes and sweeps you off, you probably have a better chance of surviving. So anyway, yeah, 50th.
We should end on that bit of Chicago history.
Right. I think we've got enough now. So everybody, happy May Day. Enjoy our lovely spring weather.
We've said enough.
We've said enough. Bye.
All right. Bye.